What is up, wrestling and basketball fans? I am Jason Burgos for Sportsnaut.com, and I have the absolute honor of talking to a hugely influential figure in professional sports. However, not only is she the president and controlling owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, the legendary Lakers, she's also the co founder and co owner of wrestling promotion known as Wow Women of Wrestling, and that is the one, the only Jeanie Buss, Madam Buss. Thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and talk about some of my favorite things.
It's an honor to have you here to talk to you a bunch of questions. So first, let me jump into it. So I read your recent conversation with Sports Illustrated, and I was fascinated to learn your interest in wrestling isn't just a smart business venture. While like the industry has caught fire recently, you've been a fan since the rock and wrestling days, like in the 1980s. Talk to me about like which performers from that era like pretty much first drew you into this unique form of entertainment, and has your passion for professional wrestling kind of always been consistent, or like a lot of fans, even like me, you get away from it and it just pulls you back in?
It back in the 80s, Captain Lou Albano
Mm-hmm.
and Cyndi Lauper used the wrestling in her famous video for Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and to me that was the hook of getting involved in wrestling and or just loving wrestling and the larger than life characters. And I collected comic books when I was a kid, so I really, like the two worlds really combined. Wrestling is really like comic book
Yep.
characters come to life and put in
Yep.
a ring, and then we get to see them battle. And basically girls just want to have fun. And I just was entertained. And certainly then with wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, and how he was, you know, such a huge star. Like, I mean, he crossed over into pop culture, and then of course, somebody like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, and
Yeah.
and how his rise using the platform of wrestling and then becoming a huge media star. Wrestling is we're surrounded by wrestling, and it's just the perfect vehicle for up and coming athletes to have a place to show their skills.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned the superhero element of it too, because the approach of Women of Wrestling takes it, it's a much more family friendly, and the performers are even called superheroes, which is very different than what a lot of wrestling fans may be familiar with. And I think it's a smart, way to go about it, and approach a certain type of audience that is also very broad, and also helps with advertising, that kind of stuff too. But how much input do you have on the product that fans do end up seeing on TV? Would it be, maybe more than fans might expect, or similar to like the Lakers, you have executives that have been hired to handle that kind of stuff, and you'll jump in when it's needed?
Absolutely. I am not an expert when it comes to, what goes on in the ring. I'm a fan. And so I like watching the product instead of like seeing the grind that the training that these girls put in every day. I like to watch the finished product, and they never cease to amaze me, and how we've been able to discover our own wrestlers, and how it I think that when athletes are given a platform like wrestling, the stars rise to the top. and
Yeah.
and we've seen it ourselves with some of our homegrown stars like the Beast.
And that's perfect that you mentioned identifying stars, finding them, developing them. Because what would you say is the general strategy for WoW long term? Is it really to try and grow, compete with some of the bigger brands in the industry, or would you like to kind of take over that niche of like an elite feeder league, akin to say like NCAA for female wrestlers, and the team wants to be able to kind of hang their hat and say, hey, before that person was a champion in AEW, WWE, we found them and we developed them.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be what would be considered a feeder league into some of the more widely known wrestling. But what's important to me is WOW is a self-sustaining
Mm,
operation.
yeah.
That the money that I've invested, I want this brand to live long after I'm gone, because this is the only wrestling that features all female cast.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important message. And I have to combine, the things that have happened to me in my lifetime, and somebody like Billie Jean King, who's been a mentor of mine, a
Mm,
hero of mine. How important it is to see women, fight their own battles, not run to a man to save them. And that message, I want the young women to see strong female
mm,
role models in the ring. And that it inspires them to know what is possible, that there is no ceiling on who they are and who they want to be. And that's what Billie Jean King did for me when I was 11, 12 years old, and watching her take on Bobby Riggs in the
mm,
battle of the sexes.
yeah.
And even my dad was the one who made me watch it. And he said to me, this is going to change the world, because people are going to see women in a different way,
Yeah.
and that we're not afraid of taking on. Now in wrestling, you definitely have your good versus evil, and the message there is not what they, because some of the characters might be misguided in the
Mm,
decisions they make.
yeah.
But what's the important message is that they're willing to fight for what they believe in.
Yeah.
And that's the message I want young women to see.
And I like the strategy of kind of filling in that niche of developing the future stars. And it's super smart. But like I mentioned in the open, the industry as a whole is on a major upswing right now, and that growth will create interest across the board, and probably help bring more eyeballs to WoW and its content. And there is a lot of very good talent in the industry on both sides, both genders right now more than ever. However, if a big name became available and could really be a huge boost to WoW and the brand, and maybe take it to another level than it is right now, would you be willing to invest maybe some big money in like wrestling free agency to bring in like a big name if that happened?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, we would be open to that, because as long as the wrestler understands what we're trying to do,
Yeah.
that recognizes the brand, and that it is about empowering women. There's so many great female athletes because of Title IX that compete at a Division I college level, and once they're done with their college eligibility, if they played field hockey or volleyball, there's really no place for them to go as athletes
Mm,
to earn money as
yeah.
professionals. And so, and we're willing to train them. So as long as wrestlers understand that's what we're about, giving opportunities to up and coming stars, giving them a platform, giving them playing time, so
Mm.
that they can build an audience and a following, then absolutely we would embrace them.
Now, one more question just on WoW before I ask them obvious Lakers questions. One of the really fun elements that wrestling fans have gotten used to over the last 20 years are of like the owners, of the authority figures kind of getting involved on the shows on varying levels. That's not all the same for all, but if the right situation, right storyline came around, would you be interested at all on an air role? Because obviously that would bring huge attention to the brand if you were involved on some level like that.
Absolutely. If anybody that
Wow.
knows me knows that I'm willing to stand up for this brand and do whatever it takes for it to be successful. So if there
Oh.
is a compelling reason for me to be on camera and be part of a story, then absolutely I would do anything to make sure that WoW is successful.
Wow. All right, so before we go, I have to ask a couple of Lakers questions, or my bosses at Sportsnaut will kill me. But while the organization didn't say add a big name this summer, I think most people that watch the sport feel the Lakers had a great summer, did a lot of big things and a lot of good things. One of the big ones being Anthony Davis gets a new long-term extension, and because of his history, he's had a history of injuries. Some might have wondered about it, some might have questioned on some level. Was that a decision the family, the front office, everyone kind of decided a long time ago, or did his really outstanding play in the playoffs kind of maybe push that a little ahead of time?
I don't think anybody could argue that when Anthony was playing, there was a stretch where he was the best player in the NBA,
Yeah,
offensively and defensively.
yeah,
It was a joy to watch him, and he. I expect more great things from him, and he's been a great Laker. He led us to a championship. And I had no hesitation at all once he became eligible for an extension
hmm.
that we wanted to keep him as long as we could possibly keep him.
Now, the big news over the last couple of days, the league plans to really hammer down hard on teams for giving the trending of maintenance days to star players, which I think some fans are probably in support of just because tickets aren't getting cheaper. They want to see the big names compete. What are your thoughts on that and like these potential huge fines, these new limitations, these new guidelines for this new rule, especially since the Lakers have a guy in LeBron James, 39, the most athletic, impressive 39-year-old I ever met and seen in my life. Like, considering that, what are your thoughts on the NBA getting involved on that kind of level?
I think it's important. I think that, Adam Silver addressed it very well. Just, it's important to the fans to see the big names.
Yeah,
And I think that, you know, we will never compromise a player's health and safety. But, rest has not been proven to be a reason why a player does or doesn't get
yeah,
an injury. So it's but what I also, on the other hand, I see when playing time becomes available, then a player like Austin Reaves, rises to the occasion.
yeah,
And so when, playing time is so valuable in the NBA that if a star player decides they want to rest, somebody else is going to
yeah,
could shine in that spot. And they're damaging themselves if they're taking nights off because they have endorsement contracts with their shoe company, with other sponsors, and the sponsors, it's important to them that the player is playing on the large
yeah.
platform. So I think it's something that has been addressed by the league, and we will abide by those rules.
Now, since you brought up Austin Reaves, it came. I thought that was a big storyline. Obviously, during this off season, there was rumblings that the organization would do anything can to bring him back, even stall other teams that were interested. Was that something just because of his play the last couple of years, from the very top, from you, like Austin needs to stay on this team. It is what it is. It has to happen. Was that always something, the strategy from a long time ago?
Yeah, I mean, what was important to us was we had continuity from last season and that we built on the momentum that we created. Certainly it was, we didn't win a championship last season, but we did knock off the
Yeah,
reigning champs when
yeah,
we knocked out Golden State Warriors in the second round. So, and we came through the play-in tournament. So, the success that we had was, terrific, but we lost to Denver, who ended up winning the championship. So we wanted to bring our core back, which Rob Pelinka did. And then, the players who left, like Dennis Schroeder, certainly we're going to miss Dennis, who has moved on to the Toronto Raptors. But, we signed a free agent in Gabe Vincent, and we expect, to fill that role. And certainly Coach Darvin Ham, who was in his rookie season last
yeah.
year, is only going to get better at his job. But now that we've been able to give our young players like Max Christie and Austin Reaves an opportunity to play in the playoffs, that is, that's experience that they didn't have before. And, that it'll only make them better. So, we are excited about our roster and our coach Darvin Ham, and what LeBron James continues to amaze all of us in what he's able to bring night in and night out.
All right, last question, and I was going in this direction since you mentioned Darvin Ham. It's always tough to transition from a different coach. The expectations for the Lakers is like the Yankees, huge championships all the time. Frank Vogel, you have to make a decision. You have to go in a different direction, even though he helped win a title. When the team gets off to a tough start last year, is there a real oh no? And then when the team turns around and Darvin Ham really is a key part of that, instituting his style, is there? Whoo, I'm glad this worked out because I don't want, or is there kind of like, I've been around this thing a long time, gotta let it play out, I'm not sweating it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I had, as a lot of Laker fans know, I was in a 15-year relationship with Phil Jackson, one of the greatest coaches ever in the NBA. So I've had a coach's perspective. And what Phil would always say to me is that it's the responsibility of the coach to figure out how to use the roster in the best way possible. To put players on the court that fit together. And we had a roster that really didn't fit together to start last season, but Darvin Ham got the most out of it that a coach could. And it took getting to January, and then the trade deadline in February, that we were able to make the moves to get the players that Darvin needed. But he never complained. Even when we were 2-10, he never got frustrated. He's the most even keel coach I've ever dealt with. Even with my experience with Phil Jackson, Darvin was a former player in the league, and he was like what I call like the bubble guy, the guy that like was always having to work to get the playing time to stay on a team. And he had a long career in the NBA as a player, but he was scrappy. He always had to figure out a way to get on the court, to how to contribute to winning. And that's what he brings as a coach, the same kind of mentality. Like, we will figure this out. We will always figure out a way. And I really appreciate having him as part of our staff.